Welcome, everybody. My name is Grace Robinson, and I apologize for all of the multiple Grace Robinsons that you may see on your screen. As Angie mentioned earlier, if you'd like to update your name so we can see who you are, you can click on the three dots to the upper right of your picture and correct your name. We had a little technical difficulty, but I have the pleasure of being the executive director at the Gadsden Art Center and Museum, and here with me on staff are Angie Berry, our curator, and Anissa Ford, our education director. And Anissa, would you like to start with the poll or do that in a few minutes? Anissa, are you? Oh, there it is. Okay, so we'd like to launch a little poll. It should have popped up on your screen. Where is everybody from today? It's always interesting to us to see how broad our reach is in our programming. So I see our poll coming in right now quickly. We have about a third from South Florida, about 43, almost half from Northwest Florida. We've got some Central and Northeast Florida and some from out of state. I saw in the chat, one person said hello from Indianapolis. I have a good friend in Indianapolis in Zionsville. So people from all over today. You can see what a broad appeal that our artist Clyde Butcher has, and we look forward to hearing him talk in just a few minutes. This presentation is the last in a three-part series of live art talks presented online in conjunction with our current major exhibition, America the Beautiful, the Monumental Landscapes of Clyde Butcher, and that's on view at the Gadsden Art Center and Museum through April 3rd. I do want to thank our sponsors for helping make major exhibitions like this possible. First of all, I'd like to thank Florida Humanities, which supports and promotes quality humanities programs for everyone like this one. They really bring major exhibitions to life for everyone. Our exhibition sponsors are also True Leave, our title sponsor, FSU College of Medicine and May Nursery Incorporated are our presenting sponsors. Our contributing sponsors are Russell Rainey, DMD, and Talquin Electric Cooperative. And our museum has additional support from the City of Quincy, the Gadsden Tourist Development Council, the State of Florida Division of Cultural Affairs, and Florida Council on Arts and Culture. And all of this support is very important for us. We are a community-driven art museum, so we are directed and supported from our community, and we simply couldn't do what we do without all of our different forms of support. I hope most of you will be able to see this exhibition. Of course, if you live out of state and it's still cold, you might want to come to sunny Florida carefully. It is on view at Gadsden Arts, which is just 20 minutes northwest of Tallahassee. We're open Wednesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. through April 3rd for this show. And you do not need a reservation to attend. You do need to wear your face covering. And I tell you, there's just no substitute for seeing Clyde Butcher's work in person if you have the opportunity. We also have more resources on our website, including a short behind the scenes video of our installation and more videos about Clyde. And then today's presentation will be recorded and also posted on our website for anyone who missed it today. I've shared that information with several already who had wanted to be online. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Clyde Butcher. He is a nationally acclaimed photographer who has made it his mission to photograph and document wild and natural places across America for the last 50 years. He began his adult life in California, where he studied architecture, and his junior year in school, he was first inspired by seeing the work of Ansel Adams, who is another great landscape photographer. Butcher first photographed natural landscapes across the American West and built a thriving business working with department stores. He later relocated to Florida with Nikki, and finding peace within the Everglades, he moved from color photography to creating his timeless monumental black and white photographs.
Nick?
Mr. Butcher is deeply committed to his artistic process. He has carried large format camera gear weighing up to 120 pounds across challenging terrain. He has stood chest deep in water for hours, waiting for perfect conditions. He spent countless hours in the lab, hand printing from large format negatives to realize his vision. Butcher promotes environmental conservation through his work. And when once asked whether he's a photographer or an environmentalist or a conservationist, he simply said yes. During his career, Clyde Butcher has completed 6 public broadcasting programs on Florida's environment, 3 of them award-winning documentaries. He was inducted into the Florida Artists Hall of Fame in 1998, and this is a very prestigious recognition awarded to just one artist a year that includes timeless greats like Martin Johnson Heed and Ernest Hemingway. And although Clyde is often identified with Florida landscapes, he's committed to recording landscapes throughout the world as seen in America the Beautiful, on display at Gadsden Arts. Welcome, Clyde Butcher.
How you do? I'm here in, well, get my screen just a little, there it is. In Venice, Florida. Now what am I,
Okay.
how do I start my?
Here. Hi, everybody. The wife.
Thank you, Nikki. Also, while you guys are getting that set up, I just wanted to mention that there is captioning available for anyone who's on this. So you just find the little CC or live transcript button at the bottom, and you should be able to see some captions if you'd like to see that. They are AI captions, so they're not perfect, but they should help.
Is my screen on?
It is not on yet.
It's not on.
Oh, gotta share screen. Okay. Now, how did we do that?
Share screen.
Oh, yeah. I can't read it from here.
Also wanted to mention that if you think of questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat and we will be sure to ask them at the end.
Are you seeing our screen now?
Yes, ma'am.
We are.
Okay, there we go. I imagine everybody knows this is Yosemite. That's kind of where I got my start in the idea of landscape photography. Let's get into the presentation. I started actually when I was about 8, and when I was 10 years old, my folks bought me this little twin lens Yashica 127 and took me out to the Grand Canyon. So, and also several different Bryce, Rocky Mountain National Park. Now, when I was in college, dating my wife, her and her family go to Yosemite every summer. So I met her there in 1961 and saw Ansel Adams Gallery. And when I saw this photograph of trees, I said, that's interesting. I could, would you photograph that for a piece of art or to sell a tree? Because I was an architect. I said, this is for lumber. So my first concept was, why would you photograph a tree unless it was for sale? So then I started photographing during college and after college when I was working in architecture in black and white. I was trying to replicate Ansel Adams, Win Bullock and such. So I started a business. It was called I Encounter, which is a wholesale business in the furniture mart in LA to sell to decorators. It was all black and white. Now, black and white, this is back in 1969. And black and white really was not considered much of an art form. Ansel Adams pictures were selling for about $75. So I said, and we wanted to try to make a living. So I said, well, we got to do some color, I guess. So I switched to color so I could match people's gold couches and shag carpet. Everybody remembers the avocado refrigerators. All these are earth tones. So I was photographing everything in color, and my sales really went up really good. And then to increase our sales, we put a clock on the pictures. And we became the largest clock manufacturer in the United States. We had 200 employees selling to Sears, Ward's, Penny's, Spencer Gift, Spiegel's, S&H green stamps. Then we decided that I sold the business, decided to come to California, from California out to Florida, and bought our sailboat, a little 20-foot with aft cabin for the 4 of us. And the first thing I didn't see, first of all, I was here for 3 years, didn't see anything here to photograph. Because I'm used to, Yosemite, the Tetons, these giant mountains. But I've been photographing the Hawaii for a long time, so beaches were next on my list. So I found I understood that in August the COs were good up in the Panhandle, and it took me a week to find the scene. Now, when I found it, the sun would stop at the edge of the water, edge of the sand. We stood. We actually didn't stand. We had chairs, we had an ice box, we had umbrellas, and we were there for 5 days, from morning to night. I took one. Actually, I took 2 shots in 1 week, and then I discovered the other parts of Florida, the Big Cypress, the Everglades, which I had no idea what it was about until I met I met Oscar Thompson. He took me out here to Big Cypress and discovered there was more to Florida than the beaches. Then in 1986, our son was killed in a car accident, and he was a passenger. And when something like that happens, you sort of say, well, what am I doing? Am I doing anything that's important? Now, people were really getting excited about my work. I was doing the art shows, because a lot of people thought they were in the Amazon or Africa, and they were pretty excited when they discovered it was local. And sales were great. I was doing fine, but I didn't quite think it was relating enough. People couldn't really see it. So I decided to get an 8x10 camera, I was using a 5x7, so I can get more detail and make larger images. Because when you're doing photography, you have to have a vision for what you wanted to do. And my vision was to make my pictures large so you couldn't see them. And people said, that don't sound right. Well, people don't understand what they see. They only see about 4 to 5 degrees. Now you can perceive a whole bunch more, 130, maybe some people are even 100, maybe 180. But to see a scene, you have to scan. And when you go out in nature, you're scanning nature. It's like when you're driving. If you're driving a car and not scanning, you may not be around a while. Now this was one of my first, actually I think it was my first picture I took after I decided to go to black and white. My sales were great in color, and everybody that was in art shows nothing was selling in black and white. I would sell maybe 20 times more dollars than people in black and white. But I didn't care. Nikki was doing well, and she was doing hand painted black and white. She would take a black and white photograph and paint it with oils like the old fashioned photographs. So this shot was almost not taken. I was out there waiting for the moon and the clouds, and I went to take a shot, and the shutter, this was a used lens. It was a 360 millimeter lens on 8x10. And the shutter didn't work. I made a few comments to nature. A few birds flew. So I was able to, with that large format camera, your lenses, you can actually take it apart. You can unscrew the front element, and you can take the shutter and push it open with your fingers, and then put it back together, put the film holder in, and use a piece of cardboard in front of the lens. So then you take the slide out, and you go 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. It was a long exposure because I was using a deep red filter to make the sky and this moon really pop. Now this was like the second picture I took. This was called a choppy. Oscar Thompson and I were out photographing 10,000 islands, and there was just no clouds. We said, look at that, there's clouds coming over the glades. So we got out there, and there was not one cloud behind me, but this storm was happening in front, and the light was just fantastic. It's a very difficult picture to print. Then we were about I think a week later, we got the boat back. I had a little 15-foot tri-hull inboard outboard boat. So we were out, Oscar and I were out photographing this tree, and this whole little rim was a rim and of oysters. And I, unfortunately, after doing this photograph, I stepped and hit a hole and really got a nice cache in my leg. So you got to be careful on oyster beds. But this tree, since this photograph, this was taken in 1989. The tree is gone. There's only 2 trees left, and that's the 2 on the very left. Those are the only 2 trees that are left with all the different hurricanes we've had. It's really interesting how hurricanes changed the Florida. Then in 2000, I think it was 2004, I had a show at the Ringling Arts, and Mr. DeGoff, I can't pronounce his name very well, was the director there. And then he moved to Williamsburg, to museum there for the museum at William and Mary. And he wanted me to do a display of, this was going to be the 400th anniversary of Jamestown. And he wanted me to do a photographic essay around Jamestown. And I said, I don't think that's a good idea. I think we ought to do a show to see what happened to America from Jamestown, from the East Coast to the West Coast, to give a feeling for what Jamestown started. So I started out going to different areas. This was my first area I went to, was Arcadia. Arcadia is really a neat little small national park up in Maine. Now I was using, on this particular situation, I was using an 11x14. And I don't know if you can see it, but I'm standing on the edge of a cliff. The tripod is about 2 inches from the edge of that rock, and the lens is looking straight down. So you can see those rocks. You're looking like down on the top of those rocks. It was pretty scary because I was by myself, and you have to adjust the lens from the front, and it was really scary. Don't want to fall down there. Then we went to Yosemite. Yosemite actually was where I started photography. So it was one of my prime places to photograph. This is my wife and I there in, it's called Tunnel View. Now this is a very popular spot. It seems like I had to get there early in the morning to get my spot, and everybody else was shooting. And I said, you know, I think I'm going to shoot something a little different than this for this shot. So I discovered an area down the road a bit. I had to go out and buy a ladder because we had flown out there. So I went and bought a ladder and got up to get up over these bushes. So this is really a view that very few people take because you got to have a ladder, and not many people want to carry a ladder out there. So we got through, we're flying. So I went down to the maintenance department and gave them the ladder. Then off to the Tetons. So this is a silly camera. This is a 12x20. The camera and the lens is 50 pounds. Well, all the gear to carry is about 120 pounds to take this thing out there. It's like taking a television set, except everything is upside down and backwards. But again, I wanted to do large negatives so I could really do nice, beautiful, large prints. Then we went to Death Valley. Death Valley, the first time I went to Death Valley, because we had kids, we went there in the summertime. I guarantee you it's not something you want to go there in the summertime. This was 1st of April, last of March, 1st of April, and it's only 100 degrees. Beautiful. People say 100 degrees, well, it's not, with dry heat, that's not too bad. But we waited and waited for a storm to blow all the people's footprints away, and we got some really great shots. Now, this was a shot that this is Badlands. Badlands, I had never really understood it. Actually it's just a bunch of mud. It's been built up with different volcanoes, and we had the best weather. It was terrible. We had tornadoes, we had hail, we had streaking clouds, we had almost every kind of weather you could think of in 2 days. It was really amazing. And we were staying in the little cabin. Actually, this is right about 200 feet from the cabin we were staying in. It's actually the view from the visitor center. And of course, everybody that photographs, the first thing they do is they head off to find something to photograph instead of looking for where they are. And we had been up. Well, we've been out photographing now for about two and a half months. And when we were up at 5 in the morning and to bed at 11 at night, every night. And we got up at 5, I went out and looked outside and I said, oh God, it's black, there's no sun. So I went back, laid down for about 10 minutes and I said, well, we've got to, we've been doing it, we don't want to give up. And I went out and got this, and the sun came out and just gorgeous. And this is a beautiful black and white image, all the tonal ranges. It's just amazing. Now, this was a fun adventure. If you notice, that first picture in the slideshow was me at the Grand Canyon. This is the first time I had been back to the Grand Canyon. I think it was 50 years. It was I hadn't seen it for 50 years, and it was pretty neat. Except this was winter time, and when we were there before, it was summer, so it was a little chilly. But it was one of those weird years where there was absolutely no snow. This was January. There was no snow, and I was hoping for the white snow and make a great black and white photographs, but well, no snow. Now this area here, this is the valley of called it's a valley between the Sierras and the White Mountains. It's this lone pine, and I've always liked Ansel Adams shots of lone pine, and wanted to do a shot there, and it happened to be this is a moon set instead of a moon rise, and the area we're taken from is where from the dump. So I said, I was looking all over the place, and there's a road that said to the dump, so I took the route to the dump, and that was the view. So this is the show you have there at your museum. It's a big show. It's that big picture in the middle is at Weston's Beach. I mean, I had to have a picture of Weston's Beach since he and Ansel Adams, Win Bullock were my inspiration. So that was pretty important to have that photograph. I actually, when I was out with my 11x14 camera, doing a workshop for View Camera. View Camera is a large format magazine that used to be, I don't think exists anymore. So I was doing a workshop and also took these pictures out. It was in Monterey. That's up close. That was, you see that picture, you feel like you're on the beach there. Now these are my cameras, 12x20 on the far left, and 11x14, the 8x10, the 5.7, 4.5. In the middle is a 6x10 I had specifically made because I love that panoramic proportion. And it was 6x10, so I had the 10-inch width, 6-inch height, because my 8x10 was 17 pounds. which doesn't sound as much as a 45 or 50 pounds. But this camera was only 7.5 pounds. So it was really easier to backpack. And then on the left of it is what's called my Clyde Butcher. It's a little point and shoot one I made. And then on the left of that is a pinhole camera, which I do a little photography. Now you see that little black dot. That's the camera I used in my architectural model photography. Now, when I went on this trip, I bought these are large format lenses designed for up to 20 by 24 camera. They're so specialized. They even print your name when you buy it. They print your name on the camera, on the lens. This is called a Snyder. That was the 550 millimeter XXL super wide. And 550 millimeters doesn't sound very wide, but it's like a 24 millimeter on your 35 millimeter camera. So you can see the depth of field problems. It's a little bit of a problem. Now, we were out for 3 months. I took 1,700 shots of film, 5 by 7, 8 by 10, 11/14, and 12 by 20. It took me 2 months to process the film. I didn't see my first print from the start to then. It was 6 months. Imagine with your people in your digital camera now, you look at the back of the camera and say, oh, I got that picture. So I had no idea if I had anything worthwhile for 6 months. And then after I developed all the film, I had to go through and look at all of it and figure out which ones I wanted to use. That was 11 by 14. Use a little called a loop to magnify it, see what the quality is. We never make proofs. Nikki and I, we call it having a negative party. We look at the negatives. And then printing started, which was a pretty long process. This is my 12 by 20 enlarger. It was a 24 by 36 copy camera for a print shop. So what I did is I took the ground glass off the back, put a piece of plywood on it, and had a 12 by 20 light source made, which was $6,000. The camera was free. And then I took a picture frame molding and made a negative care for a picture frame. And the board that we shoot on is up to 8-foot pictures. And a little black thing I have is called a Dodger, which you lighten when you have an area on a photograph you want lighter, you dodge the light, keeping from hitting the photograph. And then we go back here. This is our trays. It's 36-foot long trays. Actually, each tray is actually a sink because you have to be able to take chemistry in and out of each tray. We have plumbing underneath to catch the chemistry so we don't throw it down the drain. So when you make a print, it takes, from the time you expose it, the time you wash it, it's about 1 hour and 45 minutes. We're in the chemicals here for 1.5 hours for every shot. Then we take it and roll it down and hang it from my sophisticated hanger system, which is pretty sophisticated. These clamps are actually on a PVC, so they slide. Because when you process this in water, the print actually, this is a 56-inch paper. The print actually expands 2 inches. So it goes from 56 inches to 58 inches. And I didn't understand that when I made my trays. The inside of the tray is 59 inches. So we got 1 inch to spare rolling these things back and forth for the processing. It's pretty sketchy processing one of these things. Then in 2000, Jackie, my daughter, and her husband joined us in the business to help us out and get well. So we have more time doing photography and printing, and And Neil is helping with the printing now. So in Venice, Florida, we have a gallery where we have, it's a pretty nice sized gallery, and that's also where the darkroom is. Now this darkroom is 2,100 square feet. That's a little bit bigger than I need for my digital darkroom. The digital darkroom is the printer. Now all these enlargers, the one on the very left is 11 by 14. That was the first three here is called Salzman's. That one was built in 1932. I got it from the Miami Herald. And they paid in 1932 $50,000 for it. And I got it for 300 bucks because they wanted me, it's about 1,500 pounds. And the other enlargers, I didn't usually pay more than $300 for an enlarger because when I was buying, I started in large format. Nobody was doing large format. They were all doing 4x5 or digital. So everybody was trying to get rid of their cameras and enlargers. So it was field day for me. But now people are getting excited about it again. And it's hard to find one of these enlargers now. It's hard to buy one. What I paid $300 now, they're selling for $4,000 because now people want to get back into film. Now this gives you an idea what on the left is a straight print from the negative, and on the right is the finished. There's 12 manipulations of burning and dodging on this negative to get this result. And a lot of people, when they do a picture and they take it to a lab and they print it, they say, oh, this is terrible. I'm not a very good photographer. Well, normally that's because they don't do their own printing. If you're going to be a photographer and you're going to be an artist, you have to do your own printing, whether it's film or digital. I don't think you can possibly, particularly in black and white. Maybe a color you get by with having people print it for you, but not in color, not in black and white. Because what's the choice of? You got to have choice of density, contrast, burning, dodging. There's a lot to making a good black and white print, which has good blacks, good whites, and all the grayscales. This is the big guy. It's all motorized, so you can got a little button there, so you can focus it. You can also the platform also moves back and forth, so you can adjust the size of the print. And that's actually out that far is to make a small print. It's being set up for, I think this time I was setting up to make a 16-inch by 20-inch print. It's hard to explain, but anyhow, and then in the wash water here, this takes an hour to wash each print, to wash. A lot of patience and persistence. Now, when we were doing art shows when I was living in Fort Myers. And we just felt that we've been doing art shows since 1982. And about 1991, we said, no, I think we need to get a gallery. Then we said, we need to have a gallery kind of where we work, kind of what reflects what we do. So eventually we found this piece of property, 13 acres in Big Cypress. There's 3 acres in 3 acres in front and 10 acres in the back. In the very back's our house. In the middle, you'll see those little buildings there. Those are our we call them work campers. They come and work for us in the summertime. In the wintertime, they can't have jump up north. And up the front's the gallery. And this gallery, it's got the prettiest. We do have interesting people that come see us. President Carter, this is his 80th birthday year. He wanted to see me, and so he decided to take his whole, during Christmas and New Year's, the Carters take their whole family and do a vacation together as a whole family. And because he had just started using the new Canon. I think Canon had a new 16 megabyte camera out or something like that, and I was, showing him all these photographs, and I showed him a couple of pictures that were like 6-minute exposures, and these are 2 minutes. This was bright sun second, and he asked me, "Well, why do you use a large camera? Isn't it difficult?" And I asked him, "Well, why did you run for president?" He really cracked up laughing. He thought that was really understood the whole thing. Do something well, you have to be willing to work at it. And so after the gallery, we took his whole family in Swamp Walk, and you can see that you can see how he was up to his thigh in water. He and his wife were just had a ball. They said they hadn't had much fun since he was a little kid. What's happening here? Oh. We had just finished our last book. We just finished was it's the Everglades, on the Everglades. It's just came out just a short while ago. And we also have a traveling show on the Everglades. So, and we also have a traveling show on Cuba. And we're developing a show on Florida. Of course, the book that on your show is American Beautiful. Now, this was the last time. Oscar Thompson was my best friend, and he's the one that really got me into Florida. He was a 5th-generation Floridian. He could speak Seminole. He was a gator poacher when he was young. His uncle was Toch Brown. I don't know if you've heard of Toch Brown. He was the main drug runner in Everglades City. He was the kingpin. And Oscar died about 3 or 4 months after this picture was taken. We were out in September looking for ghost orchids. And it was a time when all the apples fall. Now, the next picture is one that everybody should look at and recognize what the world is a spaceship. And our little spaceship has finite resources. And we need to think about everything we do and everything we reflect upon. In our house here in Venice, we have enough solar to run the house and our electric car. And at the end of the year, we get $100 back. And in the swamp, we have 11,000 watts on the house back there, which is now a vacation rental, and 3 Tesla batteries. So, and out there, the power goes out a lot. So if power goes out, we still got electricity. It's kind of neat. So, okay, so that's it. So we have some questions now. Any
Yeah. I'd
what
love
do I
to some
do?
questions.
What do I do to get rid of it?
Can you click, there should be a button that says stop screen share. Should be like a red button somewhere on the screen. If you can click that for us so we can see you a little bit bigger.
Oh,
What you want to get you
I
back?
got Nikki to help us. There we go.
Yeah, just go out of it. Yeah, escape, and then just get it off.
well, the screen is up here.
Perfect. There we go. Perfect. So we invited folks to submit some questions in advance. So we do have some questions that I got ahead of time.
Good.
One, a lot of people asked about process. So I'm glad you shared some insights on process, because I think a lot of people are kind of fascinated by traditional film photography. So, if you could talk about maybe the advantages of using a traditional process or versus, digital photography that photographers use now, kind of, what are the advantages of doing what you're doing and why they have such an impact?
Okay. When I started doing this, there was no digital. So why are you going to shoot digital? There is no digital.
Right.
I wanted to do, large images, large prints. So to do a large print with detail, you had to have a large negative. So that involves, it's a whole different philosophy. And that it's a lot of work and very expensive. That 1,700 sheets of film that I took on that trip was $25,000 in film. So now to we are today in 2021, digital has changed. Digital is probably, I'll tell you, it's not the same as film, but quality wise and detail wise, you can do as big or bigger images with digital. So you don't really need to do film now, but a lot of people are changing back to film to figure out how to slow down, because they have these digitals that go out and shoot 300 pictures in a day and they have nothing at the end of it. So they're trying to figure out how I can slow down so I can get better images. Now, when I shoot digital, I think I've had, if I take 3 pictures of digital a day, that's a lot. Normally it's 1 or 2 pictures a day. So I've trained myself to look and not waste my time. I usually sit and wait for a picture now, just like I did back in film. So the advantage of digital is obviously there's not as much chemicals involved. So theoretically it helps the environment. The advantage of film is a different look. In fact, I'm experimenting with black and white digital camera. I have both a Leica monochrome, and I have a Sony that's been converted to monochrome. And so what you do theoretically is use filters just like you do in black and white film. If I wanted to make the greens lighter, I use a green filter. If I want the yellows brighter, I use a yellow filter. If I want the sky more contrast and the plants a little lighter, I use an orange filter. If I want the sky to go really dark and I want the grass to go dark, I use a red filter. But it doesn't work exactly the same as film. The film, it doesn't work. It's close, but not the same. It's a whole different thing. But with digital, when I shoot, I can adjust my shadows or my highlights. But when you're shooting film, you shot it and that's what you got. That's why Ansel Adams started, they call the zone system. Because back when they had the zone system, or I should say back when he was shooting back in the 30s and 40s, 50s, they didn't have good variable contrast paper or good variable contrast light sources. So he had to be able to figure out how to shoot the negative and how to process the film to get what he wanted on the negative. Because once you shoot it, that's it. You can't do anything to it. You can, in the darkroom, you can burn and dodge, but you can't really bring it back like you can in digital, particularly the shadows. So that's kind of the advantage of the digital is your shadow and highlight recovery is hard to do in film, but you can. You saw that one picture I did of Choppy, all the burning and dodging I did to make the picture work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. One of the things that you were saying that as you were talking, that I was thinking about is this idea of like the amount of time that it takes, to do these film photographs and how long you spend in nature doing this. So if you're, say you're taking 2-3 photographs a day, are you spending 8 hours out in nature? How long are you really spending kind of absorbed in nature? And kind of what is that like as far, obviously there's the technical side of getting your camera set up, but I feel like you also have this kind of reverence for nature where you're spending time there.
One thing neat about it is that you've got to wait for the right light. You've got to wait for the wind to stop blowing. So you get the feeling of where you're at. I mean, you get to hear animals start coming, crickets, sounds, the wind coming, the sun coming and going. So you're becoming part of their experience besides just taking a picture. Now, it depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes you go out when it's the right time of day. Now, people ask me, what's the right time of day? Well, the right time of day is when you're breathing. You're not breathing, it's the wrong time. Because in black and white, there's good light every time. Yes? No.
Yeah, get something off again. Sorry.
So now I have it's called the cigar orchid pond. It's a shot that angle I found in January 1, 2000. Because we always, when I was still, before my stroke, every January 1st, we would go out, family and people who work with me, we go out for a swamp walk. And I found this one shot that I really loved, and it was January 1, 2000. I went back there every year for 9 years before I got the right conditions to take that photograph. So you have to have a little patience, a little persistence. Like when, for instance, if the sun is out, there's nice clouds, I go out and look for prairie shots. If it's overcast, I go in the woods because in black and white, you can't have this real high contrast light. Well, you really can't do it either in shooting with digital either. So basically, you see that you find the light, you go where the light goes.
Well, that's all photography is, right? You know, it's capturing light.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's called seeing, and also, you know, what a photographer has to have is a vision for what he wants to do and what he's trying to accomplish. Now, if you shoot, people love to photograph dogs, photograph people, architecture, cars, whatever your passion is, usually is what people get involved doing. My passion has always been nature. Ever since I was a little kid, I was out in the woods building forts. So I've always been interested in nature. So that's been my vision, my passion. And I think that's, if you try to do something that's not your passion, like if you really hate the outdoors, but you see that my work is really selling well and I want to do the same thing, well, I don't think it's going to come out as well as just doing what you want to do, because you got to really love what you're doing to do it well, and you have to be persistent. I mean, I've been doing the same thing for 50 years.
So tacking on to that, we know you were a trained architect, but did you have any formal training in taking photographs?
The formal training I had was to try to get a good grade in architecture with photography. I did not. No, I mean, no, I have had no formal training, but in art.
I'm sorry. You got to tell them the story about when you
well, okay,
did your film.
Well, when I just did my first pinhole shot in college, doing a model, I went down, I built a pinhole camera, went down to, I got some 3 1/4, 4 1/4 film in the camera store, put it in the camera, I took it out and photographed, used it, and, you know, had I think a 10 or 15 minute exposure, and I developed the film and it was black. And so I took it down to the store and I said, you know, what did I do wrong? Well, did you turn the lights off when you put the film in the camera? No. Oh, you got to turn the light off? Because I've been using roll film where you don't have to turn lights off. It's got this backing on it, so you don't have to turn the lights off. So I just threw the film in the camera and tried to take a picture.
So he's come a long way since then.
I'd say so. Goodness.
No, you have to turn the lights off now.
Well, everybody starts somewhere, and that's kind of inspiring that to see how far you've come.
Well, you know, also it has to do with my architecture training. Architectural training, what you're doing is you're visualizing a 3-dimensional space and putting it down on a 2-dimensional piece of paper. So basically, that's what I'm doing. I'm visualizing this 3-dimensional thing, put on a piece of paper. You know, and when I photograph something, I do not use the viewfinder. I see the shot, I set the tripod down, put the camera on, focus it, and take a picture. Everything I do is point and shoot. So I see people going around, look, now I just, if you can't see it, you can't photograph it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm looking for spaces now, because I'm an architect. I always visualize spaces. So most of my work is very spatial, and I'm trying to get people involved in the photographs so they feel like they're there, so they can walk into the picture. Some of the pictures I do that are 5 foot by 8 foot verticals, and you hang it about 8 inches from the floor, you can feel like you're walking right into the picture.
We literally had a couple today say that in one of the redwoods. They said, "Oh my gosh, I'm standing right here in front of this redwood. I can walk right into this forest." That was just this morning.
That's what I'm trying to do, because a lot of people never had a chance to get out, and then when they do get out, they don't see it. And then I've had a lot of people come in the gallery in the swamp, and they would sometimes come back a day or two later and said, after seeing your photographs, now I can start seeing the Everglades better. I can start seeing what's happening there, because the Everglades is, well, anything that's natural, normally, it hasn't been messed up by man, is very chaotic. Because if there's chaos in nature, usually it's biologically in order. So it's our quest to make sense out of the chaos, and organize the chaos in such a way that you can feel it. So that's really, I can't tell you how many people have come back. I have friends out west come out here to photograph, and they call me and says, "I didn't see that stuff." How do you do that? Well, you just do it. But a lot of people don't want to get out in the swamp. They don't want to get wet.
True.
I mean, I don't want to, so I'm glad to be able to experience them through your photographs.
Well, you're missing a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you, like when took President Carter, Secret Service were really upset because they didn't want to do this. But they had to do it because President Carter, he didn't care. He's a very adventurous person. And the lady that's in charge of Carter's wife said to me, "I can't believe they're making me do this." We got about 20 minutes into the swamp walk. She says to me, "Oh, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this." So it was from complete terror to complete joy. I've had that so many people. I had this one lady from the University of Florida. Well, actually, that was an international branch over Miami. They had the teachers and faculty I took them out for a swamp walk, and I happened to be by her, and we were out about 10 feet. She about fainted. She was so scared. Unfortunately, the dean of the college was right behind her, so she couldn't say, "I'm not going," So I took them out for, it was about a 2.5 hour, 3 hour walk. So we got them. I took them through a couple of gator holes, up to their chest in water, really, and put them in. And we were having lunch, and I asked her, "Well, are you okay?" And she said, "Well, when can we do this again?"
Oh.
From complete terror to wanting to do it again.
Well, I know a lot of people in the chat are wondering, what do you do about all the snakes and alligators?
Well, you just don't worry about it. I think one thing, if you worry about things, I think they tend to catch on that. They catch on that. But I don't know, maybe people know, but I don't know of anybody that's ever gotten attacked by a gator in the wilderness. Now, behind people's houses and golf courses, a lot of gators attack because they're used to people, and you get up, pick a golf ball out of the water, and they think that your hand is a fish or a frog, and they grab you. But I don't know if anybody's ever gotten hurt. Well, that I know of, gotten hurt in the wilderness. I've had a couple of people that have gotten charged by a gator, and they just hit the person with their nose and say, get out of here, get out of my way. I've only have that happened once out of, I don't know, 12,000 trips. But gators, I mean, when you're walking in the Everglades, you're like a walking tree. You walk slow, you don't make a lot of noise. Vibration what attracts gators. And snakes, you don't go in mating season, which is usually May and June. Oh,
Those are good
yeah.
tips.
Yeah, so snakes can be very aggressive when the mating season, dry season.
Yeah. Would you briefly discuss the film and paper developers you use for your negatives and prints, and the papers that you use in the sources?
Sure. Well, we use all Kodak film, T-Max 100. I have my 12 by 20 specially made. It's all T-Max 100. I use T-Max developer. I developed it, whatever the recommended time and temperature. What the trick was, waiting for the right light. With people are trying to use a zone system, they try to take pictures and not the light wasn't right, so they try to fake it by doing it under and overdeveloping. The paper we use is Ilford multigrade fiber base. It comes up to 56-inch rolls, 42 inch rolls, and cut sheet paper from 5x7 up to 30 by 40. We use Kodak T-Max T-Max developer. We use Kodak indicator stop. We use fix is what do you call it? It's a quick fix. And then when it goes into the fix, we go into a hypoclear and selenium toning. It's about 20 to 1 of the clearing agent and the selenium. Because if you put it right into selenium out of the fix without the toner, the hypo eliminator, it'll stain the print. So you've got to put those two chemicals together. And after that, it goes in the wash for an hour. And we have, three or four, five different washers. We have one for 11 by 14, 16 by 20, 20 by 24, 30 by 40, and 40 by 60. These are all vertical washers. Then when you have bigger than 40 by 60, you have to do it flat, rolling it back and forth. When we develop the paper in the sinks, we use water noodles. Neil gets on one side, I get on the other side, and we roll the paper back and forth in the chemistry. And the water noodles keeps the paper from getting stick on the bottom. I started with PVC tubes. PVC tubes are so heavy that the paper went down, it would get stuck on the bottom, and it would be so hard to turn that it would leave your finger marks on the it would overdevelop where your fingers are. So I found the water noodles. I was at the counter at Home Depot with my PVC tubes to buy, and I saw these water noodles. I said, "Wow, I bet that would work." And we've been using the same water noodles for 20 years. I bought a whole bunch of them because I figured they're going to go bad. We use the same ones for those things are built well. I think they were like $2, something like that. This is what the kids use in swimming pools.
Yeah, that's how wonderful. Well, we just want to say thank you so much. It's been so great having you here. There's a survey in the chat that you can click on and get to a survey.